The following program is a paid commercial which has been paid for by the advertiser, whose products and/or services are featured in this program. Mindful of Your Health. Sponsored by Emergence Health Network.
Hello, and once again, welcome to our EHN Mindful of Your Health podcast. I am your host, Noreen Jaramillo. For the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about what's called first episode psychosis and what EHN does for our community in this area. And as always, we have invited our experts here to talk about this particular topic. So we want to welcome, we have Alejandra Cuellar, and then we have Viridiana Lopez, and they are with our EHN Coordinated Specialty Care Department. So we want to welcome you. And we have a lot to discuss that's going to be very important information. So let's start off with first episode psychosis. What is that? What do we need to know about that?
What we need to know about first episode psychosis is that an individual will experience a break from reality. They're going to experience a change in perception, including hallucinations. This can include the five senses. They can also experience delusions, which are false beliefs.
Okay. And when does this typically happen? I had read, and some of the information that you had shared with me early on, is that this typically happens between a certain age time, correct?
Yes. This happens in adolescence and early adulthood, ages 13 to 30.
Okay. So this is important information for all the parents out there,
yes.
And even young adults that are in college. They may not be living with their parents anymore, but they're still in this time frame. So that's important that we get this information out. So what happens, and the way I've been to put into layman's terms, right? The way it's been described to me is this could also be described as the first onset of a mental health concern or mental illness. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so can we talk about that? This is the first time that you're feeling something, noticing something is different, but what typically happens? People ignore it?
People are likely not to share because of the stigma that comes with it. If they say like, hey, did you hear that? Or hey, did you see that? And somebody says no, or like even sharing something that might seem unrealistic, they rather keep it to themselves most of the time rather than sharing it. It's not until the person their goal starts getting affected, their employment, like you said, their education, family starts noticing that they start withdrawing, not socializing. Even maybe sometimes when you're having conversations, they start adding like odd communication or odd beliefs. It's like, you know that something's wrong, but then they're able to compose themselves for a moment.
Okay. And Alejandra, can you talk a little about why this is an issue? Some people may be experiencing some of these symptoms that you talked about, but we ignore them.
Yeah.
Right.
And then what usually happens, 6 months, a year later, they're still just trying to avoid them, ignore them, and what's that process?
A lot of times when these individuals ignore the symptoms, unfortunately, they can go into a crisis and end up in one of the psychiatric hospitals. They can decompensate. They can actually lose their jobs because they're not, paying attention, or they may be, sometimes our clients can be in denial. They can lose credits in school. They can get kicked out of school. They can, the relationships at home, especially with our young adults, sometimes the parents feel, well, maybe they're using substances when it's exactly they're experiencing their first episode of psychosis, and they may become homeless. So with the CSC program, early intervention is very, very critical, so they can kind of typically avoid some of these
the big
crisis.
impact.
Okay,
Right?
so then let's explain to our audience again. Crisis is basically, when we're talking about emotional crisis, is basically where you get to that point where it's the breaking point, so to speak. And then we get into an area where you're in a, for lack of a better word, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of in a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct?
Or
Okay.
they're not able to complete like their daily task, or they're not able to continue with their usual routine. Like it can affect their hygiene, their sleep, their meals, their regular
And that's what
routine.
we're trying to avoid with the coordinated specialty care program. A lot of it is education,
Yes.
Yes.
letting people know this is what you might be dealing with it. And as with any medical condition, early treatment is vital, right? Can you
Yes.
talk about that?
So early intervention, our goal of our program is so when an individual is experiencing these symptoms, they can learn how to cope with them so they're not having to go in and out of the psychiatric hospitals, so they can finish school, they can not have to quit their job, lose their job, to live the best quality of life that they can. So that's the main goal of why early intervention with first episode psychosis is very, very important for our young adults.
We want to provide hope overall for them and for the family and people that are around them, because they might not know what to do in that situation. And it's like, let me teach you, let me show you.
Okay, so let's talk a little about that. The way it's been described to me, and again, you guys are the experts, so you correct me, is learning how to manage the condition with these coping skills that you're talking. So it's basically, and this might be a bad comparison, but a migraine headache, you recognize when it's coming on. But if it's a mental health condition, you kind of recognize, how your body, how your mind is feeling, and then you learn how to cope with it. So can you give us an example of these coping skills that you teach?
One that is, I guess a popular one is our breathing techniques. A lot of times our individuals, the anxiety of like, oh my gosh, the symptoms, the voices, teaching them like, take a break, breathe in, breathe out, making sure like, okay, they have a safe space to go to just breathe in and breathe out. That's very, very important. Even stress balls.
Okay, something as simple as that.
Right.
And I think for others, it's also teaching them to put boundaries within the hallucinations, letting them know it's okay to say, hey, I'm busy, don't bother me right now. Or, hey, this is my body, like, give me a break. Or I need, like, our time would be maybe at 5 p.m. after I finish doing this. Setting those boundaries within the hallucinations and taking control of their body again, rather than letting the hallucinations take control of them.
I like that. Okay, so it's just understanding, listening to your body has a lot to do with it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Learning to know themselves, what triggers them, what is increasing the symptoms, and how can we avoid or manage that.
Okay, so we talk about education.
Yes.
How does the what we call coordinated specialty care program, or the CSC program, who qualifies to be in that program, and what does that program look like?
So anybody from the ages of 13 to 30 who are experiencing symptoms such as hearing voices or hearing things, noises that others may not hear, seeing things that others may not see, paranoia, they might be out shopping at Walmart with mom and dad and feeling everybody's just talking about them, out to get them, things that affect the five senses. Sometimes some individuals smell things that we know it's not there. We are also a grant-funded program, meaning we take anyone with or without insurance. If an individual does not have insurance, the grant will cover the services.
Okay. Now, some of the symptoms you talked about seem pretty scary.
Yes.
Okay, so what message would you send to someone out there who is listening, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's me, and I'm so scared, and I don't want to deal with it. Like, what do you tell them?
They're not alone. We have so many individuals that come across in our program that, when they first come on board, they are just terrified. They feel my life is over. Everyone is going to just label me as this person that has this illness, which it's not true at all. They are not alone. They have so much support. They will get a team that will work with them. We've had success with our clients where they've come into the program, they are just so hopeless. The family's hopeless. They're frustrated. They're so fearful. They're upset. They're angry. But we're a 3-year program, so seeing the success of where they started to, where they're in a competitive work field, they're going to college, they have a job, they've mended their relationships with the parents as to when we got them. So it is scary, but there's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
We're very,
I would also say that there is a need. That's why this program was created in the first place, because we found out that there was a need. More people than we realize do experience this type of symptoms.
Okay. And the concept of the first episode is to try and educate people that if you get it in that early stage, the better the outcome?
Yes.
Okay, so it's similar to, let's say, diabetes or breast cancer or any kind of cancer.
Yes.
The earlier the treatment, the better the outcome, right?
Yes. The more they have a better outlook on, getting the career that they want, going back to school, working, just catching it early on so they can know how to manage when they're having an episode of the voices are so intense, or the shadows or the delusions are just so intense, knowing that, okay, what did my therapist and my caseworker go over with? What did the doctor go over with? So just, education is very, very important.
So it is very similar to, let's say, diabetes. You learn what to eat, what not to eat.
Yes.
You learn how to manage it. So that's one of the messages that we want to get out to our community is shedding that stigma. There used to be a time when, several years ago, but you talked about cancer and it wasn't something that you shared.
Right.
Now, we want people to embrace,
Yes.
go get those screenings, and that's similar to this.
Yes. And we also want to teach them the appropriate healthy coping skills, because it can easily go to substance, and then it can easily go into something else that it creates more problems rather than maintaining or managing the symptoms that are coming from the psychosis itself.
Okay, and that's very important. We want healthy management, not to self-medicate
Yes.
in a negative way. Okay, so what message would you want to send to a loved one of someone who is going through this? How do we help them? How do we support them?
It's a roller coaster of emotions, knowing that it's okay to be scared, to be frustrated. A lot of our families, when we first get them, they're just so hopeless of like, my loved one was doing so well, all of a sudden this happened, will I ever get them back to where they were? Knowing that there is so many resources and there is so much support that they do have, not to be scared to ask the questions, not to be scared to reach out. We're here to help.
And our program is an evidence-based program, and we're here to help not only the individual but the family as well. So our program also includes a family partner that works specifically with the family of the client. They don't necessarily talk to the client, they talk to the family. How are you feeling? What do you need? What techniques do you need to help your child or your loved one? So that's why this program is, I guess, important. It's unique.
Yeah, and it supports the whole family, the whole unit.
Right. Because they get a team, once they come on board, they get a whole team, a whole support to help them of like, okay, you can't get a hold of this person, you can get a hold of this person, we're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the, and I'm hoping that you guys can elaborate on this. When it comes to mental illness, it's scary. There's a stigma, unfortunately, that's associated with it. But once you learn those coping skills and learn how to manage it and recognize it, there's no reason why you can't go on and live a very productive, successful life, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
So, and that is the message that we want everyone to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that, yes, it's a diagnosis, but even with cancer or diabetes or a broken leg or whatever, you can still continue on with your life.
Right.
It's learning how to manage it.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't end with the diagnosis. The person is still themselves and are still able to complete their goals and the dreams that they have.
Okay.
We're just the extra support to help them get there.
Okay. I've also heard an analogy that they do the legwork. You guys are just the support system.
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes it takes that support system because it's a very scary situation.
In all honesty, I think we're the biggest cheerleaders that they'll have. When they get a job, we're just all, gosh, we're just the most excited. So they get a whole cheer team that's going to be.
Or when a child's thinking they're not going to finish high school and they actually do get to enroll in college and all that. It's like, okay, at one point they didn't think that they would be able to do it, but they definitely can.
Yes.
Okay, because when we think of mental illness, we think of, unfortunately, the worst case scenarios.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of best case scenarios.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
A lot of success stories. Well, thank you, ladies, for what you do. Obviously, you do very, very important work. How can our community, those who are watching and listening, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get information? If they're not even sure this is what they need, can they talk to you guys to say, yes, you qualify for this program?
So we are with Emergence Health Network. We are on the website. You can also call 915-208-0650 to schedule an appointment just to talk to us. We can actually staff cases, even if you might be scared. Don't worry, we're here. Also, you can email us at cscoutreach@ehnelpaso.org, and we are very responsive. We respond no average of about 24 hours.
Okay. So again, thank you guys. This valuable information, and more than anything, I wanted to get the point out there that early treatment, early help is the key to everything. Okay.
And stay hopeful.
Yes, stay hopeful, and you guys will help instill that hope again.
Yes.
Because I'm comparing it again to a medical condition. When you get that diagnosis, all hope's got to go. But then once you learn more, it comes back.
Not so scary.
Okay. So thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. And thank you once again for being with us. Remember that our website is emergencehealthnetwork.org. You can find information on the Coordinated Specialty Care Program on the website as well. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
At Emergence Health Network, your behavioral health is our commitment. For more than 55 years, we have been serving our community, providing mental health programs, substance use treatments, assistance for our veterans, and 24-hour crisis care. This is us working for you.
Thank you for letting us be mindful of your health. Brought to you by Emergence Health Network. We'll see you next time. The preceding program was a paid commercial which has been paid for by the advertiser whose products and/or services are featured in this program.